No, I'm not really at Levi Stadium. I was in the studio at NBC Sports Bay Area on Sunday, watching the 49ers and the Rams, and where the Rams just jumped on the 49ers from the get-go. 21-point lead in the second quarter, and then they just kind of kept the 49ers at an arm's distance throughout this game. I think the number one takeaway for me watching this game was how the Rams really took it to the 49ers. The Rams offense, I always kind of thought of them as, a finesse offense, an offense that relied on the big play. And that's kind of the way I felt even coming out of that game week 5, where the 49ers win that game in overtime. And boy, how important does that game look now, and how impressive does that game look now? That the 49ers were able to get the season split against the Rams. But in that game, the Rams really gashed the 49ers with big plays. 49ers did not put much pressure on Matthew Stafford. He's able to just pick the 49ers apart. The Rams had 8 plays in that game of 20 yards or more. And I kind of felt like the 49ers in this game they wanted to avoid the big plays, obviously. And that almost played into the Rams' hands a little bit, because the Rams, I think a little bit of this was necessity, their reliance on 3 tight ends. It's just something you don't see a whole lot. But with Puka Nacua, he'd been out for some games, missed some time. Last week, he only played 50% of the snaps. He had the ribs injury. And so the Rams really leaned into this 3 tight end thing. And what it did, I think, was it kind of dialed back the Rams offense to the point of they weren't looking for the big play. They were looking to just kind of methodically march down the field. And one of the very interesting things about this game was it just, the 49ers had a very difficult time getting off the field. The Rams had 31 first downs in this game, and they only went to third down 9 times in this game. And so what that tells you is the Rams, who were 5 of 9 on third downs, and then one time they took it to fourth down and they converted on a fourth down. But what it tells you is the Rams are picking up those first downs. They were moving the chains on first down and second down most of the time before it even got to third down. So the Rams are able to kind of implement a smash mouth type of mentality with the running. Kyron Williams, 73 yards rushing on 14 carries, 2 touchdowns, and then more or less a short passing game. The Rams only had 3 plays of 20 yards or more in this game. So it wasn't like these big chunk plays that you always kind of associate with the Rams. And the 49ers, a very little pass rush. I was surprised that the stat sheet shows that they had 8 hits on quarterback Matthew Stafford. Just didn't seem like that. And then the defensive backfield, didn't tie it together. They weren't playing sticky coverage, and the Rams pretty much had their way. But I just also find it interesting when looking at the stats that the Rams only averaged 6 yards per offensive play. The 49ers averaged 6.6 yards per offensive play. The difference is that the 49ers were not as good on third down. The 49ers failed on a fourth down play fairly early in the game. Christian McCaffrey stopped for no gain when it was 21-0, but that was at the Rams 11-yard line. It was, I don't know if we want to call it a drop, but definitely a pass that Juwan Jennings could have caught. Emmanuel Forbes broke up that play. That ended the very first drive of the game for the 49ers right after the Rams had taken a 7-0 lead. So that was a 3-and-out. 49ers give the ball back to the Rams. Rams score. And then on the next drive for the 49ers, down 14-0, Juwan Jennings with a false start. Juwan Jennings catching a pass and then having the ball punched out from his grasp. That was Nate Landman, the East Bay native, punching that ball out, forced fumble, and Cameron Kinchins recovers that. And so, some plays early on that Juwan Jennings certainly wants back. Later, he ended up having a decent game in the second half with 6 catches, 71 yards, and had a touchdown. George Kittle, really the reemergence of him as a pass catching threat. He had a really good game, a couple really remarkable plays, including that touchdown late in the game where somehow he stopped his momentum at the sideline and then reached the ball over the pylon. But for George Kittle, 9 targets in this game, 9 catches for 84 yards, and for the first time really showing a good combination with Mac Jones. And boy, Mac Jones, um, take this the right way, but I almost feel like the 49ers would feel if they were in better shape for the final 7 games of the season if Mac Jones had in some way not played well enough to win some of these games. In other words, what I'm saying is that, the 49ers, I have to believe, are kind of leaning into the fact that, hey, they hope to get some guys back. I know George Kittle talked about that on the 49ers Talk podcast over the weekend. He said it again after the game. They expect to get some guys back, maybe more a stabilized situation at left guard with Ben Barch coming back. He was rotating in with Spencer Burford. Jake Brendle's back at center. He looked like he had a pretty good game. In fact, I'd say the offensive line had a really good game on this day, keeping Mac Jones upright. This is a Rams team with a very good defensive front, and Mac Jones was under a little bit of pressure, but not that much. No sacks in this game. Mac Jones really kind of using the passing game as an extension of the running game. 33 of 39, 319 yards, 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. That 1 interception coming on a 4th down play. But I almost feel like the 49ers would have a lot more reason for optimism if you could look at it objectively and go, man, when their starting quarterback gets out there, that offense is going to be so much better. But I don't think you can say that because Mac Jones has played so well. He's given the 49ers everything they could have wanted from their backup quarterback. The 49ers are 5-3 in the games in which he's started. And I don't think there's one of those 3 losses where you go, man, if they got better quarterback play in that game, they would have won. I think he's played good enough to win basically all these games. And it's quite clear the 49ers have some issues on defense. Bryce Huff got back onto the field. He did have 3 quarterback hits in this game. But by and large, the pass rush just wasn't there. And that ties together with the back end. 49ers did have 1 sack in this game. That was Kalia Davis and Keon White teaming up for a sack. So, yeah, I mean, they're getting some guys back at some point. Ricky Pearsall is going to be back. He hasn't had any setbacks with that knee, but it's just not ready to get back out there. And I would assume once he returns to practice, it'll take him a full week of practice and then some, and then the next week before he's ready to suit up and play again. This is what Kyle Shanahan had to say after the game about Brock Purdy. He said he could have gone definitely, meaning he could have played in this game against the Rams. Shanahan goes on to say, I just decided to hold him out, not put him in that situation. Meaning, there was talk a week ago when the 49ers were playing the New York Giants that they could kind of ease him back in, kind of a soft landing, suit up for the game, serve as the backup. But what does that mean? That means the worst case scenario is something happens to Mac Jones and Brock Purdy has to go in and play when he's not quite ready to go in and play. But what Shanahan said is hopefully he'll have a chance to play this week. So this week, week 11 against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I think that, with Brock Purdy in practice the last 3 weeks, this week he was running the scout team. So they're giving him more and more. He's not going to be 100%, but is he good enough that they feel like the risk is worth it to take, that he's not so susceptible to aggravating that injury. And I think that in order to get him ready to return to action On Wednesday, he has to, by and large, take part in a full practice and probably go through a full practice. Maybe not full practice, but let's say limited practice on Wednesday, where he's getting a lot of the first team reps, and then maybe a full practice on Thursday and a full practice on Friday. If he makes it to the end of the week, he should be ready to go. But again, it's not like Brock Purdy is going to come in and automatically and overwhelmingly play better than what Mac Jones has given them. The 49ers are at a crossroads right now. They are 6-4. Yeah, is it too early to be talking about the playoffs? Perhaps, but guess what? I'm going to talk about the playoffs anyway. This is the first time right now at 6-4 that the 49ers are outside the playoff picture. The 4 division winners earn spots in the NFC playoffs, followed by 3 wild card teams. Right now, the first wild card would be the Rams at 7-2, and the second and third wild cards would be Detroit and Chicago, both with 6-3 records. The 49ers are 6-4 right now, but there is an opportunity for them to, with not the most difficult schedule looming out there. They play week 11 against Arizona, week 12 against Carolina, Monday Night Football, and then week 13 at Cleveland. That's on a short week, and then the bye week, week 14. So I really think they have to go 2-1 to stay afloat here over the next 3 weeks against Arizona, Carolina, Cleveland. If they can sweep that, then they're looking really good. However, I just don't think that this 49ers team have shown the consistency to be able to string 3 wins like that together. I mean, they very well could be favored, and they probably will be favored in each of those 3 games, but the consistency has been lacking from this team, and that's what they need to find. They need to find the right mix on offense between run and pass, how to distribute the football, getting it more to Kittle, obviously keeping Christian McCaffrey as a major factor in both the running game and the passing game, while also sprinkling in Brian Robinson with his power running. We saw that in the third quarter when the 49ers went down and scored a touchdown to make it a 7-point game. Brian Robinson had a really good drive where he gained 5 yards, 6 yards, 13 yards, had a negative carry, but then back at the goal line with the 1-yard touchdown run. So I think the answers are there on offense, and scoring 26 points against the Rams. They could have done better had they not had the 4th down stop in the second quarter, if they hadn't had the fumble, the John Jennings fumble in the first quarter. So they could have added to that point total, where the 49ers have to find some answers. And how Robert Saleh dials it up is being able to generate pressure on the quarterback while not sacrificing anything on the back end. It's tying together the pass rush and the coverage. And there was just a very small sample in this game where they were able to do that, where the pass rush got to Stafford, where they got some pressure on Stafford with the blitz. And then there was a 3rd down play where Renardo Green broke up a pass, could have easily been an interception, but at least it forced a Rams punt, one of the few punts that the Rams had to line up for in this game, because the 49ers couldn't get off the field. And that, I think, is the major concern for this 49ers team right now is, do they have the guys on the defensive line to impact a game in a positive direction for them? They weren't able to do a good job against the run, as the Rams really asserted their will with those heavy offensive packages, and they weren't able to get after the quarterback and affect Matthew Stafford. And when you look at it, I think the 49ers, they're not going to be facing another Matthew Stafford for a while. Next week will be Jacoby Brissett. The week after that will be Bryce Young. The week after that will be, I guess, Dylan Gabriel. So 49ers have an opportunity to get right, but this roller coaster of a season after the 3 wins to open the year, at some point it has to kind of stabilize, and we'll ask ourselves, who are the 49ers? And maybe we get an answer, because right now it's kind of difficult to say what this team is all about. I think there is talent. I think they can certainly make the playoffs. I don't know if I would still put them as a favorite. I've been saying all along that I think they're going to make the playoffs. I still kind of think that way. And I'll kind of say the same thing that I did last week when the 49ers played against the New York Giants. A playoff team wins that kind of game on the road against a New York Giants team that has a difficult time nailing down victories. And I would say the same thing about this Week 11 game coming up. That is a game a playoff team should win. So that's the recap. 49ers 42-26. They lose to the Los Angeles Rams and fall another peg down in the NFC West standings, and now certainly in a battle for their postseason lives with 7 games left in the season. So thanks so much for watching this video, and that is it for now.